Alright, so today we're going to talk about how to set up a 3-die turret setup from Lee. Other dies are similar, but I have Lee dies. I like Lee dies. They're carbide. You don't have to lube them. Steel dies have to be lubed. What that means is every single case has to be lubed. So I've got a really weird cartridge here. It's one of my favorite handgun cartridges. A 327, if it'll focus, a 327 Federal Magnum. Really cool cartridge. Takes a small primer. 3 dies. The first die in any cycle is going to be your decapping die and your sizing die. And it has 2 purposes. I'm going to pull it out of the press and show you its 2 purposes. The first purpose is pretty simple to see. They're very long. Bear with me. You got this little pin. Okay, you'll see this little pin sticking up out of the middle of this thing if the camera will focus on it. Okay, and that little pin knocks your primer out. The other thing is the case actually goes in here and gets squeezed back to normal size. What happens when you fire a pistol cartridge is it expands, and when you run it, when it expands, it won't fit into the chamber anymore, and so you have to squeeze it back down so it'll fit back into the chamber easily. You ever want to see this effect, take 2 pistols that are the same caliber, shoot a piece of brass out of one of them and try to put it into the other one, and sometimes it won't chamber because it's swelled too much. So you go up with your press arm, okay, we'll zoom in a little bit more here. You go up with your press arm and listen. You hear that ping? Okay, that little ping was your pin knocking your primer out. Okay, that little ping you heard was your pin knocking your primer out. Okay, and it's not liking me today. It doesn't want to focus. Okay, it's your pin knocking your primer out. While you've got it in that die, you're either going to put a primer right here just by hand, or you set your primer system up on your press. You'll have primers in this tray. Let me zoom out. You have primers in this tray, and you got this little primer arm here, and you'll put this over the primer arm and you'll click a primer on. Okay? Now you do that, there'll be a primer in here, and on your downstroke you'll see this guy straighten out. Okay? And on your downstroke you're actually putting your primer into the primer pocket. Okay? So that's your downstroke. Okay, so your first die squeezes, knocks the old primer out, you reprime. Okay, your second die is your powder die and your expanding die. Okay, your powder die and your expanding die will do 2 things. Okay, number 1, it'll take this case mouth and it'll go from straight to flared. It'll flare the case mouth. Okay, and what you want to be careful of is if this die is too low. Okay, so let me go up just a speck here. If this die is too low, you'll flare it too much. It'll split the case mouth. If this die is not low enough, it won't flare it at all. Now the purpose for that is that when you go to put a brand new bullet, okay, so here's a brand new bullet. When you go to put that in the case mouth, if it's not flared, it won't go in. Okay. And specifically, like with lead bullets and coated bullets, it'll take the coating off. Okay? So anyway, there's number 1. And I'm going to go ahead and just use an old primer, and I'm going to prime this. Just because I can. Okay? So, here goes. We're going to go ahead and prime this just because we can. Okay? So it's primed. My press is loose. I need to tighten my press. Now, the way to set this powder through expanding die is to loosen it up. Okay? To loosen it up. And you're gonna press up on your press. Okay? You're gonna press up on your press, and your goal is to get this powder die, this expanding die, loose enough that when you press up, it doesn't cycle your powder all the way. Okay? That's your goal. Okay? So here we go. It did not cycle the powder all the way. Okay? Now what we want to do is we want to slowly turn this in. Okay? And what you'll feel on your press hand stroke Okay, so what you'll feel here on your press hand stroke is you're gonna feel this cycle, and when you get to the top of that cycle, you should feel a little extra resistance. Okay, so into that stroke and a little extra resistance, and it's by feel. And you're gonna do it, and I just felt it. I felt that little extra resistance, and then I'm gonna show you what happened. Okay, so here is, if it'll zoom. And if you can see it, it's hard to see. Put my hand behind it and make it focus. You see that that case mouth is flared just a little bit. And that's what you're shooting for. Now once you get this to the right depth, you're going to reach up here and you're going to turn this lock nut down until this is locked into place. And every case will be flared like that one. Okay? So that's step 2. It also puts powder in. So this die flares the case mouth and puts powder in the case. Okay? Third die is the bullet seating die. And this die also does 2 jobs. Okay? And I'm going to run them through you, run them by you. First job it does is it seats the bullet. Okay? And on a Lee die, that's this knob on the top. Okay? The second job it does is it crimps the case. So the case is like this. You need to get it like that. You need to go from, right, you go from straight walled to flared out. You want to actually crimp it in on the bullet. And that's the depth of the die. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit more and I'm going to show you what I do here. Now first thing I do is I always put in a bullet. Okay? And I'm going to move this thing way, way, way out. Okay? Way, way out. And I'm going to literally let go of the press handle. Hang on, let me move this out. Way out. Okay? Okay? Set the whole die, both the bullet seating part and the crimping part, out as far as you can. Okay? And you're going to press up with your press, and you come back down and you're going to see it's not seated properly. Okay, there's a little neck, a little ring around the bullet here. Okay, you want your case mouth in that ring. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this handle at the top. Okay, clockwise, go back with the press, check our bullet depth. And we're going to keep doing that until we get the bullet depth we want. Okay? So we're going to keep doing that until we get the bullet depth we want. Okay? And I'm literally just turning and pressing and turning and pressing and turning and pressing. And we're almost there. Almost there. Okay. Now, here's what we want. See how the case mouth is even with that ridge, okay, with that crimp groove. Bullet depth is perfect. Now we're going to take it all the way back out. That sounds insane. We just got it right. We're going to take it back out. Okay? Go all the way, see my ammo here. Go all the way down with the handle, all the way up with the ram. And you're going to turn your die until you feel it hitting the crimp groove. Okay? And it's hitting the crimp groove pretty early on this die. Okay? We're almost there. Okay? We're almost there. Alright. So we're in the crimp groove. Now what that's done, and it's hard to see, it's really, you have to feel it. But what that's done is that's pushed this brass into that crimp groove. Okay? And it's literally, you're going to turn this die until you feel it touch. And you're going to try it. You pull it out, see how it looks. Quarter of a turn, try it again. Once you get it set right, okay, where it's putting a good crimp on, what you're going to do is you're going to take your lock ring and you're going to set that lock ring. Okay? You're going to set that lock ring. And I will tell you, these things are really, really hard to turn. And the best thing you can do is I've got some spray-on white lithium grease. And I sprayed it on these things and ran it up and down one time. And it makes them so much easier to turn. They really are a pain to turn. And if you only load one caliber with a particular die set, you never have to reset them. But I use multiple calibers, multiple bullets. Now what do I mean by multiple calibers? For an example, this set here is 32 Smith & Wesson long, 32 H&R Magnum, and 327 Magnum. It'll do 3 different rounds. And I was doing the shortest of those 3 the last time I used it. Now I'm doing the longest of those 3. Okay? So now I've got my crimp right. I've got to take my bullet seating depth because I moved this up. Now I've got to move this back. Notice, here's my round of ammo. Push it all the way up into the die and turn this until you feel it touch the bullet. Okay? Now this is touching, and this is set. And you've got a nice live round of ammo. Okay? Now what? Well, now you go back and you start the process over. So decap, prime. I never finished tightening this one down, so let me tighten this one down before I go through this whole hullabaloo with you again. Okay? Well, I'm not worried about it. So decap and prime. This one will expand and put powder. And this one will seat the bullet and crimp it. And voila, you've got a live round of ammo ready to shoot. And you do that a couple hundred times and you're ready for a range trip. So if you have questions about how to set up a Lee 3-die set, shoot me an email or drop me a line in the comments. I'd be glad to help you. Someone taught me how to reload, and I'm hoping to get more people into it because it is a lot of fun. It's a great way to save some money. It's a great way to make good ammo, and then you really don't have an excuse to go to the range. So anyway, drop me a line if you need some help.